Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, president and executive producer of The Peak TV. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers who are winners in their field and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Welcome, everybody. I have got some good friends in the studio with me today. I have Nancy Werteen and Kim Howie. They are the beautiful creators of the Wisdom Coalition and also the authors of the book, The Power of a Pivot. Ladies, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I have to say, so I want my listeners to know that really you guys are the inspiration behind podcasting, because you have an awesome podcast that really was one of the originals in the area. So I think between you and Paula Young, I had said, this is something really neat that I see women I admire doing. And I thought, what could be our take on it? So I want to thank you for that. And thank you for being here to contribute to our podcast today.
Oh, well, we're honored.
Yeah, certainly. We absolutely are.
Tell me a little bit about how you two came together. I want to get to know each of you a little bit more and let our listeners learn more about you. But first tell me how you found each other and what the Wisdom Coalition is all about.
Oh, you're going to have me start.
Well, I don't know.
Well, how we found each other actually was our daughters play tennis together. And so that's how we met.
So sitting around watching, you started talking to each other, and what did you find you had in common?
Yeah. Well, then we started playing tennis.
Yeah.
Which, then we had that camaraderie out on the tennis court, and that was sort of how it all began. And then the Wisdom Coalition came from, us playing tennis and realizing that there was so much wisdom that we were sharing with one another, all the women on the court, that it was really fabulous and helpful and, really supporting and uplifting one another. And we thought, we need to do more of this, as women. We need to lift each other up. We need to share wisdom with one another. We need to help each other thrive and find more joy in life.
It's so amazing, and it is such an important concept. I read something recently that was an article about why moms of teens, and we all have teens, need to talk more honestly about what's going on, because we do it when they're babies, right? We're constantly seeking advice, and when they're toddlers and school age. But this weird shift happens when all of a sudden your kid is supposed to be the greatest thing ever because of college. You stop talking honestly. So it's kind of a neat concept. Nancy, you have a background in media, and you work for WFMZ and have for a long time.
Yeah.
What did you kind of want to bring to the table that was different? I guess bringing your skill set from your media background into the Wisdom Coalition?
Well, the first thing I just want to say is when I met Kim, and she's being kind of humble here, I had never really met anybody like her. She had this incredible way of just being positive all the time.
It's true.
And
it actually is really true.
Really true. And taking things that, even something that you wanted to get really negative about, right? Something would happen, and she would just have this way of kind of nicely moving it in this other direction. And so when we came together with this idea about camaraderie, also very pivotal to that is this idea that it's our choice to find joy, right? That every single one of us, no matter what our circumstances are, it's our own responsibility. Joy's not going to show up on our front door in a nice, neat package with a bow on it. And when she kind of introduced that idea to me, as a journalist, right, I observe people my whole life, right? And I kept watching her, and I kept thinking, man, what does she have that how does she do this?
And how can I get some?
Yeah, absolutely. It was contagious. And, and how it is. All of us in life, right? We you get together with folks, and what do we all say? Oh, what did I just do when I sat down? It's so cold today, Everybody starts, a lot of times that's just kind of human nature to start in the negative, And I just found it really refreshing to be around Kim. And so when we started this idea, we talked more and more about this idea of finding joy. So Kim is getting her master's degree in positive psychology, and so she is able to come up with a lot of the tips and tools and content, things that we have in our book that we talk about on our podcast, that's all about, how do we reframe our situations? How do we fight this feeling that we want to be negative? I think it's called the negativity bias. How do we flip that lens so that we can really choose the joy? Because we're going to have struggles, we're going to have difficulties, but what is it? What is that magic thing, that we can have, that we can still be joyful? And that's a really important part of the
Wisdom
Coalition.
Concept that it's a choice. And I remember when I was probably in college, and I was dating my husband, and I remember my stepmother. I'm really fortunate to have 4 amazing parents that I have great relationships with, and she said to me, love is a choice. It was the first time that had been framed to me like that. I think we're so often we think it's this Cupid thing, it just happens and then it stays.
Right.
And she said, you need to choose to love your spouse. There's a lot of days where the love for your child is somewhat unconditional, right? Most times.
What happened this morning?
Wait, are we talking honestly about the teenagers now?
Well, maybe not these years. It's true, right? Like joy is a choice, love is a choice. We have to get up and make. Kim, tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up, and what had you previously been doing for a living?
Yes. Well, so I grew up in a small town, Cranberry, New Jersey, right outside of Princeton. Very small town. My father was a police officer and actually retired as the chief of police. So
that's
my
cool.
whole life he was a police officer. My mother was a tax collector in town. So small town.
But she knew everybody then, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, as I was just going to say, parents who were public figures, everyone knew me. So I couldn't wait to get out of that town as a child. Although, as a mother now, I would love to, be in that type of environment. But that's where I grew up. And then I went to school. I have my bachelor's in psychology, as Nancy said, going for my master's in positive psychology now. But I worked in human resources for many years. Merrill Lynch, which was headquartered at the time in Plainsboro. And I worked there for a
And then you
years.
transitioned from that into, I guess you have another
Yes.
career so that I'm not sure what you call it, but I know that lots of health coaching.
Yes.
And I know lots of people that would say, then not health coach, but we're on the Kim Howie cleanse.
The Pure Energy program.
Yes, Pure Energy program, which you've now brought these awesome healthy recipes to lots of places around the Lehigh Valley. So many of us can be fortunate enough to figure out the best way to eat and be healthy. But what was the transition for you from HR into health coaching, and why was it something you did?
Yeah, well, so I took some time off when my children were born. And which is really funny to me because going into marriage, I said to my husband, who always wanted me to be a stay-at-home mother, I said, it's not for me. I'm going to be a working mom. I'm going to go to work and, the children will go into daycare. And then you have a baby and suddenly, Johnson & Johnson has that phrase, having a baby changes everything. Like, you have no idea until you have that baby that it literally changes everything. Because, and I just couldn't be away from her. So I stayed home for a number of years, and it wasn't until I turned 40, I had what I like to call my hormonal crisis. And my whole body went just haywire on me, and I didn't know what was going on. And I went to my gynecologist and I said, you need to give me something. It's like something's not right. And,
is there a magic bullet?
Right, exactly. I just, give me something, a pill that's going to, change this. And he said to me, I want you to go home and I want you to eat only whole foods for 1 month straight and then come back and see me. Well, I was so mad because at that time I thought, I know how to eat and I eat.
That sounds like a harder solution than the pill.
And honestly, I thought I was eating well. I was eating vegetables, but I was spraying spray butter on them. And to me, I was like, well, there's 0 calories in spray butter. I didn't know enough about, what whole foods really were. And so I said, okay. He said, nothing from a box, nothing, nothing
Pretty
that
revolutionary
has
coming from a
label.
doctor, right?
Yes.
No, coming from a doctor to say this is because, and now it's becoming more and more popular, but I think to have someone say that to you and then you actually did it.
Well, it was literally life-changing. Well, and I have to tell you, I'm a little bit stubborn as a person, and I thought, I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to go home, and I'm going to eat these whole foods for a month, and I'm going to come back, and then he's going to give me that pill. But it didn't work that way. It was phenomenal. I can't even tell you, it was like night and day. And it only took about a week. 1 week in, everything just started to balance itself out, and I just could not believe the impact that it had. And so then I started doing my own research. I go, what's up with this food thing? I had no idea there was this connection between what we eat and how we feel and our I think
hormones. It's pretty neat to know. I didn't know it was a relatively recent finding for you.
Yes,
so that's
it's almost
neat.
a decade. So
well,
now I'm aging myself.
Looks like a couple years.
Thank you.
So now, Nancy, you have a very different background. So tell me a little bit about where did you grow up and how did you get into media?
So I grew up on Long Island, and interestingly, my dad worked in Manhattan. He was in this elite rescue company called Rescue One, New York City firefighter. So when there's a building collapse, a fire, whatever, Rescue One goes in to rescue the people before they knock down the fire. So we would be, at home on Long Island, and we'd turn on the 6 o'clock news when my dad was working because he'd get interviewed sometimes, and that was really cool. So I saw that, and then I grew up in a place called Shoreham, and they actually built a nuclear power plant. And if you've ever been to Long Island or the Hamptons, it's one road in, one road out.
Yeah.
So they the people who live in Shoreham were like, okay, we'll never get out of here. We'll never be able to be evacuated. So there was a big controversy and media coverage and protests in my town with people from all over Long Island. And again, I saw media coverage there. I was really into that. And so I sort of grew up with kind of being really into and aware of the media. I always
it was
liked
like in
to,
the background.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a career necessarily, but in the background of
It's
influence.
just in the
I think it's
background.
interesting that you both have dads that were civil
Yeah,
servants.
that is interesting.
That's kinda
I know when
cool.
we first met, we were like, yeah, that's kind of weird. That's
Yeah.
kind of interesting. And my mom is from Germany. She actually escaped the East Berlin before, right as the wall was being built. So my parents are, they just had these very interesting lives. And I've always been really, really compelled by writing and storytelling. And so, it's like funny when you look back at your life, you kind of see the way everything comes together.
Right.
And, how all the roads lead you to the place where you were supposed to be. So.
It's interesting. And what was there, you guys talk about your book is the power of a pivot. Was there a pivotal moment in your friendship where you thought, we have the nugget of an actual business concept here? And not even a business concept, but maybe a way of thinking.
That's funny because when we were kicking around words, remember we were going to call it nuggets of wisdom?
Yes.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
Kim's daughter one time said to us, now what's that chicken nugget thing you guys are working on?
Oh my gosh.
Ixnay on the nugget.
We were like,
It's funny how one little thing like that can stop. I mean, I had different company names, and what we would do is I would try them over the phone, and I thought if I had to give my email address to someone or this website, so I love the name Popped Cork Productions. But I could see the logo in my head.
That's
But
a
how do you
tough
tell anybody how to spell that? So that was right out the window. Now I just drink wine during my podcast. It's it all came full circle.
Well, we do stump people with the coalition. Now, how do you spell that?
Yeah.
Coalition.
So was there a moment, Kim, like that you knew that this is something you wanted to do beyond just your circle of friends?
Well, I think it's been a journey, right? I mean, and it started out as this concept that we were going to have these monthly meetings, right? Where we were going to bring women together and, similar to your point about how we don't talk about our teenage year, our children when they become teenagers. There's a lot of things we don't talk about, about things we call our mushroom topics, things that grow when you keep them in the dark, like mushrooms, right? But there are topics like fear and vulnerability and
regret.
Yes. And we have a lot of them in our book, where we just talk about how important it is to speak it out loud. And I talk a lot about Brene Brown because she's one of my favorite authors and researchers. And one of the things that she says is, shame cannot survive being spoken. And so, once you get it out there and you say to someone, this happened to me and I'm in a, she calls it a shame storm. I'm in the middle of a shame storm. And that person says to you, oh my gosh, I've been there, me too, and it gets better.
Nancy, you had been working and have been working in media. Tell me a little bit about what life lessons you've learned in that experience and a little bit about your career that you've brought now to the Wisdom Coalition at this time in your life.
Well, you're right. I've worked in media for a really long time, and I was an anchor for many years. And I think at this point in my life, I'm really enjoying bringing stories of hope. That's really what, and I think that our Wisdom Coalition television program is about, and even the Life Lessons series that I do is about, health
It's
and wellness.
really
type
my
tips.
favorite thing on the
well,
station.
thank you.
I always tell you this every time I see you, but I think it resonates. Of course, it's what we try to do on the Peak, and I love the stories that you tell. It's really good information, but told
thank
through
you.
personal experiences,
Yeah.
and I love that. So it's kind of neat to see the intersection of your, I don't know what you would call it, original profession and your newfound profession coming together. So have you found that?
Well, and I was going to say, from the Peak, I mean, there's so many great stories to tell in the Lehigh Valley. There's so many fantastic people doing really awesome things, and it's so great and an honor, right? And for
Absolutely.
you as well, to shine a spotlight on those people and to bring those things out into the public. So
Yeah, and such a privilege to get the time. I'm always so grateful to have the time with people in their space in particular, telling their journey and sharing what it is. So, I think for you guys, it's probably the same as me. Some of the idea behind having more ways for people to get at your content is that I just want to share that with everybody else. I feel so privileged to have that opportunity.
Well, and podcasting. When we started the podcast, right, that was really different for me because I've always been scripted and I've always been, very more rigid, and on the podcast, it has evolved, and now we have fun with it, and we laugh, and that was really difficult.
Some
for
of
me
us
at
curse.
First. I cursed.
You
yeah.
cursed?
Now, right.
Oh, that's exciting.
I was about to say, and once I let that loose, I just couldn't.
That was it.
Couldn't hold back at all. But that's been really fun and interesting for me to try to explore a different space in media, to be more relaxed, to have more fun, to
What
curse.
about for you, Kim? I mean, this is totally different for you. Now, you didn't have a media background. You haven't been a spotlight kind of person, I would say.
Right, no.
But you do have this incredible, magnetism about you. You have a warmth and something that makes you draw people in. How has it been, being with Nancy, dragging you into the limelight everywhere?
Well, honestly, and I even say it in our book, it was a little terrifying at first, just because, like I said, I hadn't had any experience in it. And honestly, not that there were a lot of opportunities, but that was by choice. I never really wanted to be out in front like that. However, I've really flipped my thinking on it and started to look at it like, rather than am I doing good, it's am I doing good?
How is it influencing those that are participating?
Yes.
Yeah, which is really, I think that's a significant flip that happens for anybody, even if you choose to go into this career, right? Because at first you're learning, how do I write the content? How do I get the content? How am I doing with the content?
Right.
And there's a flip that happens when you get comfortable, where you say, how is what I'm creating being perceived, understood, changing people's thought patterns, whatever it is, right? It's kind of cool.
Well, and you had asked earlier if there was a pivotal moment where we kind of sort of knew we really were onto something. And I think it was probably when we had our kickoff. We decided to have this kickoff party. We had 200 women come to Symphony Hall. And, being in the presence of those women, having them listen to us, having them be sort of, I like to say sometimes it's like they're in the desert and we're giving them a drink of water. Having them be like, oh my gosh, yes, we need this. Yes, this is what women need. We need to have this spirit of camaraderie. We need to understand how to choose joy. And we need each other's help for that.
And you knew it personally, right? But then to have those 200 women in a room all maybe reflecting back on you, I can understand where that would be like, okay, now we're on to something.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, I want to go back in time. Only you told us briefly, where you grew up and what you studied. Tell me one thing about yourself that people don't know about you as a kid. A hobby, a sport, something you did as a kid that we might be surprised to know.
So I don't know if this is all that wonderful, but I was a swimmer. My whole life started swimming when I was 5, so I have still, I believe to this day, a record, like a 6 and under record for breaststroke. Yeah. But I swam all the way through my life, and all the way
That's
through high school.
amazing.
Yeah, not in
How
college,
fun.
but in high school.
Oh, I
Yeah.
like that. That is a good one. That's good. What about you, Nancy?
Well, I talked about my parents before, and I think we used to, once my mother became a U.S. citizen and there was no threat anymore to her being arrested if she returned to communist East Germany, we used to go every Christmas for 2 or 3 weeks as a family. And that was really life-changing for me, to be in a country like that where people didn't have choices, where they didn't have all of the resources that we had. My mother once a month would pack up, just like the cliches you've always heard, she'd pack up a package that had cigarettes, coffee, toilet paper, the essentials. And I'd see her making those packages, but when we would go there and, the
Experience
the
it.
fear, that existed, the Russian soldiers in the streets going over the, Checkpoint Charlie. And it really gave me a sense of understanding of how privileged we are in the United States. And I kind of grew up with that insight and feeling really good about our country and the freedoms that we have,
Yeah,
All right, so now you just squashed my 6 and under record. We're always saying comparison is the thief of joy. You just stole my joy.
Kim, I think that your 6 and under record is very special.
Thank you, Ashley.
And, also foundational for your life. It probably gave you some confidence.
And here's what she does, right? What does she just say? Comparison is the thief of joy. She has all these little things. Just the other day you said, and I get a chance to talk to you about this, you said perfection is the enemy of good and start. Yeah. And I was like, because you said that in our last podcast,
that
and I was
one's
listening
heavy.
to that, and I was
For
like,
a perfectionist,
oh
that's...
my gosh, that's so true. Like, she's got all these little things. She just kind of slips in there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh,
and you're
my
like, wait a
gosh.
minute. Oh, that's so good.
That's great. Well, tell me a little bit about what has come from the Wisdom Coalition. Of course, you wrote the book, The power of a pivot. Did either of you think you'd write a book? Was this a goal? Was it a life goal to write a book?
Well, I had actually already written a book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's
Okay.
Yeah, so on health
Tell
and
me,
wellness,
what's it called?
Yeah. It's called The Simple Recipe for a Healthy, Balanced Life. And so I wrote that book probably 5 years before we wrote this book.
Yeah. And this book,
Wasn't that nice? You got to turn the tables on Nancy. It was like, here, I'm the expert on book writing, Nancy, so.
I've always wanted to write a book, right? You know, as a writer, a journalist, you're writing all the time. And it's funny because we came up with the idea for the book, and it was sort of this runaway train. You know, we were like, we could just do this book, and then we put this outline in, and we made this Google Doc, and I was obsessed. I was like a crazy person. I'd wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, literally, and I would just be like, oh my God, and I'd run to my computer, pound, and then she'd text me the next morning, she's like, what the hell did you just do? You put in 3 chapters. I can't put in 3 chapters.
I know. Like, I can't keep up with you. Because I was doing the research behind it with the tools and the tips, and she was doing the stories, and it was funny. So we came up with the outline first of the topics we wanted to address, and then, went from there.
I'm sorry, I cursed. See, I'm
I
starting
know,
already.
I was going to call you out on it.
It's
But
getting wild already.
It's actually
Podcast
did
again.
It's the wine.
Not to say they're giving me wine.
What has been for each of you, what has been sort of the singular most important thing you've taken away from this experience of developing the Wisdom Coalition so far? I guess for you personally, not what you've seen it do for others, but what has it done for you personally?
I can take that first. I mean, it has changed my life. I mean, I would, I thought I was a happy person. I thought I was a positive person. I wasn't. And, when I think now about literally the time I wasted, I feel badly about that, because this way of living is so much better. I mean, I feel like, and we always say this, we're living the lessons. And, the things that we do, we've developed, tactics, tools, ways to deal with things, and I feel like we've changed as people. Our relationships have changed.
I was just going to ask, how is that you mentioned you've changed, but how has it influenced your marriages, your experience with your children?
When you're happier, everybody else in the family's happier, right? We're the moms, we're the heart of the home, and everybody comes home and we've got a smile on our face versus, a grouchy look and a snarky attitude. Everything kind of starts to shift, and it's this incredible snowball of, I feel better, you feel better, we feel better, our family feels better and better and better, and it just keeps going.
Sort of that same idea that you were talking about very early on about joy being a choice and choosing joy, and you sort of wake up in the morning and you have an ability to choose the way your day can go. And it does affect that smile effect, they call it, right? The smile effect. You smile at someone, it smiles the next one. I really learned that concept, and I would say mastered it at work before I've mastered it at home, because it's certainly still a work in progress at home. But we did some business coaching as a team early on in ASR, and one of the things that I really realized is that as a leader, the way you enter an office or a situation has such a distinct influence on everyone around you. And I never was thinking of myself as a leader. I was just thinking of myself as a member of the team. I was uncomfortable with that, I think. And I didn't realize that some of my actions, behaviors, tone, word influenced the way that rest of everyone else's day went.
Yes, absolutely.
So what about for you, Kim? What was the moment for you? What's the single thing that's really stood out?
Well, I have to say, and I say this all the time, I started what I call my joy journey a little while before the Wisdom Coalition. And for me, it was sort of like this fun experience that I decided I was going to use joy as a barometer, and I was going to sort of sift and sort through things. Does this bring me joy? Does this bring me joy? And I liked living that way. I was like, okay, if this brings me joy, I'm going to do more of it. If this, almost like the magic of tidying up, right? This doesn't bring me joy, I'm going to do less of it. And then all of a sudden I had this moment, this aha moment of, you know what? I'm the one who's choosing whether this brings me joy, and I can find joy in anything. So there's so many things in life that are outside of our control, the weather, the traffic, other people's thoughts, other people's actions, but it's how I respond to it that matters. And I can find joy anywhere I want, even in doing the laundry, which is always my least favorite joy. I'm like, I can enjoy this.
All right, I'm going to try this with the dishwasher.
Okay.
I'm okay with laundry. Dishwasher is not my friend.
Well, I don't think it's not easy. I mean,
it's not.
There's a lot of times that we have to check each other. Probably you have to check me more than I have to check you, but where we have to say, you know what, let's think of a different way to look at this, and or let me just kind of let this out, complain about it, and then let's reframe it and move on, you know?
How important is that process for people? So when you're talking about you've got each other and you're building this coalition, which often is something I think of we use as a term, you know, it's like governmental, or we're going to go fight something in Washington. But you're really building a grassroots coalition of women. Do you want people to find their network? I mean, is the idea that you find a group? Is it one friend? Is it a group you get together? Is there accountability? What's the real messaging behind finding your wisdom coalition in your own life?
Yeah, it's really, the word coalition is really a movement, which is why we chose it, because we really just wanted to help people take control of their own lives and their own mindset, and realize that they could literally change their lives by shifting their mindset. So we wanted to get women together, and we focused, but really our message is universal, the message of choosing joy. But women in general, we tend to have a lot of competition. So we really wanted to help women collaborate in a way, and sort of teaching them how to do that.
And I think the coalition part too, we have a lot of women who follow us who have, you know, come to repeated events that we've had, and then they get to know somebody else, and then they get to know somebody else, and they get to know somebody else. And so we've watched these beautiful connections be made from people that didn't know each other, that we never would have expected would get along.
Right.
You know, they sit
they're
together,
supporting
and then the
each
next thing you
other.
know, they're working together, they're doing something together, they're using the tactics that we have outlined on how the power of a pivot can change your life, to change their lives, to change their daughter's life. I mean, how many women have we had tell us, I gave your book to my daughter, my mother, you know, and that's incredible.
What a gift to watch it pass on. And of course, Nancy, you're talking about finding this, you know, later in life. How great to give this to our daughters. Especially at a time when it's tough. Teenagers definitely struggle with the concept of joy and gratitude, right? So if we can, I guess, show them that.
Well,
that's
and
neat.
even as a mother, you know, right? We have girls the same age, 14, right? And, you know, that's a tough age. And I've really tried hard lately, because of the way that we are, and with the Wisdom Coalition, to react differently to, you know, I always say with my daughter, you know how kids are, right? If somebody throws a ball, if you don't catch it, there's no game, right? Sometimes they want to come at you, right? For some reason.
Sure.
And, you know,
the best thing is not to engage.
Right, you know, and just, you know, trying to, it's just a lot of the texts we use, I've used that with my daughter, and I feel like it's really made a difference in her, in our relationship, you know. And I think that when they see me, my older daughter, who's going to be 22, you know, has said to me, you know, it's neat to see you trying something different. It's neat to see you, you know.
That's very affirming coming from her.
Yeah.
What have you seen from women? So you talked about what it's done for you, but what about, you mentioned women connecting. What has come out of the Wisdom Coalition and this concept and movement, really, that you have heard feedback on? I guess what's been moving to you about that?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You know, the one thing that I think that we hear again and again, especially with women that we have on our podcast, is women are in pain. There's a lot of women in a lot of pain, and I think they need a soft, safe place to land, and I think that's what we provide. You know, every time we have an event, whether it's something really small, we did a lunch and learn series at the Capitol Blue Store, and we'd had under 12 people there, or an event with like 50 people, somebody's crying within the first 10 minutes.
Wow.
Because it's like they finally feel a place where they can explore, try to understand, you know, the negative self-talk thing is just something we hit on over and over. I was just saying to Kim the other day with our podcast, we're going to have our 100th episode next week or so.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
There's always the top 5 played podcasts, and you know, it's always like the one of that week, the one of the week before. Number 3 or 2 is always podcast number 17. Somebody going way back into there, that's called "Why Are We So Hard on Ourselves?" And I said to Kim the other day, "What is with that podcast? It's not. It's just that subject.
Everyone feels it.
Why are we so hard on ourselves? You know, and that's why we're going to do a "Why Are We So Hard on Ourselves" too, right? To kind of move it forward. But it's like, why are we so hard on ourselves as women? You know, we get in a room and we're picking at ourselves. You know, we look at, and I say, "Oh my gosh, you look so beautiful in that," and then she says, "No, you look better in that," and you know, "I want your hair," and "I want your this," and you know, and we just are hard on ourselves.
Well, we were talking earlier about that idea of owning it. and that idea of saying it aloud.
Right.
And I have found a tremendous amount of power in that.
Yes.
And really, for me, it was a very sort of a conscious choice to start to own things that were difficult for me. And as somebody who is a perfectionist, who always strives and is hard on myself, I have to almost own something, then let it go myself. And when I own it, what I find is other women in particular tend to step up and help you own it and help you affirm it and forgive you before you can forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And that's been very helpful. But if you don't say it out loud to somebody,
Right. That's the
you can't even get
vulnerability.
to that point. So what about for you, Kim? What kind of feedback have you received and have you seen out there in the
Well,
community?
and I'm going to answer that, but I wanted to add something to what you said. We had a woman on our television show and on our podcast, Caroline Adams Miller, and she used that term, diseases of despair. And she said they are on the rise with women, and it really hit me hard. And I think for me, that's our purpose. You know, we're trying to help women who are in pain.
Yeah.
You know, who are suffering from these diseases of despair.
And to your point, you know, saying it out loud, I think sometimes, you know, when we've had like I said, somebody ends up crying, you know, and then they'll divulge whatever it is. And let's say it's, I'm so, you know, I keep calling myself an idiot or something. Yeah, we've done that. We do that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh my gosh, you do that? Yes, we do that. We all do that. But here's what you can do. Here's how you can dig out of that hole. And that's just really important.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
providing hope for people.
Yeah.
Letting them know that, you know, there is a choice that can be made.
Yeah.
You know?
So you guys have pretty much done it all. You've got a podcast, you've got the TV show, you've written a book, you're hosting awesome gatherings of women from small to large sizes, retreats, everything. What's left? What's next? I mean, in a matter of what, 3 or 4 years, you've conquered it all. So what can we expect from you guys, and what's next for the Wisdom Coalition?
Well, I've often said the Wisdom Coalition is like a kite, and we're just trying to hang on to the tail as it goes through the sky. But I mean, I know we've talked about a second book, but I mean, I think it's just more, you know, we want to continue to go down this path that we're going down and continue to bring this message to as many people as we can bring it to. And it's what we found, you know, we live this, and yet we are constantly evolving. We are constantly having to work at it. We're constantly slipping 1 step back and 2 steps forward. So I mean, it's not the kind of thing where it's once and done. You've got to keep at it.
You want people to know that you're living works in progress too.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, did
Like
you
you
have
said,
anything?
you know, living the lessons absolutely
Yeah.
every day. And I think what you know and what we know is that the world is becoming smaller, right, with technology. And so it's fabulous that we're able to reach into many other countries with our
Yes,
podcast.
yeah.
And, you know, we really feel the momentum of the movement, and we just want to keep that moving forward.
Well, I think we can feel it too in the Valley. I really, it's been a real joy to watch, not only to sort of cheer for you both as friends and colleagues, but I think seeing you embody what's so important to me personally. And I think what's been interesting is we kind of walk side by side often in what we're doing, and I'm doing it in a different way, but it's certainly, I hope that it's an undercurrent of the work we do. And so it's been very inspiring, and you can see and you can feel it, and people are talking about it and owning it, and women are talking in a different way when you bring it up. So you guys have had a real impact, honestly, and it's neat to see.
Well, you know, and Kim brought up Caroline Miller before. We had her on a show for Women's History Month last year. And the other thing that she's doing that we've tried to embody is something that's called #Share2to2. Share 2 positive things about 2 other women twice a week on social media. And those are the kind of things that for women are going to change the world.
Awesome.
Right?
Dakota, are you making a note of that?
That's
That's
right.
good. So our producer,
Lifting
Dakota,
people
she
up.
does lots with our social media, and I think that's awesome messaging. We certainly will take that and continue it on. For people who don't know, tell me a little bit, you mentioned your daughters, your families. Tell me a little bit about your families and what they're like and what you're into. And Kim, give me an intro.
Okay, so I have 2 daughters who just recently celebrated birthdays, so I have to make sure I get their ages right. They are now 14 and 16, and my 16-year-old is driving, which is terrifying for me.
I'm in the countdown. We are 3 weeks from a license.
Oh, Ashley,
yeah. We can share the stories. I'll be there for you.
I have to say the countdown was fun. The reality is terrifying.
Not so much, yeah.
But, you know, we all went through it, right?
Yeah.
And I will say to my mother, I can't believe, you know, how hard this is. And she says, well, I survived it, you'll survive it.
Right,
You know,
true.
But yeah, so So that's what's forefront right now for us is the driving experience. But yeah.
And your girls are both into tennis.
Yes, they're both into tennis. My older one is also into just swimming year round, and she does speech and debate. So
Oh,
she's
wow.
a big
That's
debater.
exciting.
Of course, we joke and say she's been debating since she could speak. So she's channeling it in a good direction.
I
now.
love it. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
she
great.
wants to be an attorney, so she's heading in the right
Okay,
direction.
she's doing the right things. Probably
Yes.
good that Nancy's come into your life to give some of the speaking, public speaking,
Yes,
right? That's
yeah.
awesome. And Nancy, what about you?
So I have, my daughters also have very close birthdays. It's funny, my daughters missed the same birthday by 20 minutes. Their birthdays are May 9th and May 10th. So the older
Oh my
one was
gosh.
born like 11:40 p.m., right? So she was almost born May 10th. My husband and I have the same birthday, August 20th.
You're
so
kidding.
we have, it's so funny because we have four people in the house, and pretty much like, 2 times of the year that we celebrate birthdays, because when they were little, I would just put both of their names on the same cake. For the
yeah.
little one.
Right.
Yeah. But they're 7 years apart, actually. So the little one's 14 now, and my older one is 21. So they're good kids. My older daughter's in graduate school, so we're just hanging on tight with all of that.
Before we wrap up, give me advice for other moms out there, whether they're stay-at-home moms, working moms, part-time working moms, have a dream. What would be the advice that you give to moms? Because you talk about being hard on yourself. I don't think anyone's harder on themselves than mothers. That's really when it kicks into high gear for a lot of women. And then we have these expectations about our own lives, our kids' lives, our marriages. So what is your best piece of advice for moms?
Well, I would say find an orthodontist that has evening hours and weekends.
You're so funny.
Yes, because they have to
Drives me
see
crazy.
you all the time.
But it's like, oh, we have an appointment. Yes, it's 11:30 on Wednesday. What? She's in school 11:30 on Wednesday.
Okay, I like that.
I was going to go a little deeper than that.
I like that. That is good practical advice, but
That's right. When they're first born, just make sure you have that orthodontist.
You know
lined
what
up.
I would say? Don't be critical of other mothers. I think that's one thing that we all, right? If we stay at home moms, then she's staying at home and she's doing it this way instead of that way. I think that trying to really be more of a tribe and helping each other out, and how did you do this? How did you do that? And being less critical of each other is also awesome.
Well, that's so funny. I was thinking along those same lines. I heard a quote the other day: "If you want to be judged less, judge less." And it really was like, oh, yeah, that is the key. I think that in the light of what we're trying to do of lifting each other up, we really have to be there for one another. We can't be putting each other down privately and lifting each other up
Because
publicly.
I think the choices we make as moms to work, to not work, to work part-time, it's very private. And, we all have to, I stepped off the anchor desk, and that was really hard to do. And not everybody would agree with what I did, but I did it because it was what worked for me.
Right.
When my older daughter went to grade school, I was like, I can't go and anchor all these evening shows. She gets off the bus and I'm leaving. Like, I just couldn't do it. So, I think that, and that was my path, and every woman I see, you have a baby, like Kim said, you don't know till you have that baby. They put that baby in your arms and everything changes, and you have to navigate that, and it's hard and it's scary, and you want to do the right thing. You want to be a great mom. And we do our best, and sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, I think I would say you have to learn to forgive yourself.
Yes.
Because you're going to lose it. You're not going to handle everything right.
Yeah.
You'll find out something you thought was great 5 years later wasn't really the best. And I think you have to forgive yourself and move on and find that joy. And so, well, before I let you guys go, we do a little fire question round. We should tell people that we did not prepare this. We did not talk in
definitely
advance.
didn't.
So I'm I'll go back and forth. So Kim, I'll start with you.
No,
All right.
First.
If you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would those words be?
Oh, goodness.
Can I describe her through?
Yes, that's easier. That's so much easier.
That's really hard.
All right, I'll
I'm
let you
bad at
describe each
self-promoting.
other's. If you can describe Nancy in 3 words, what would you say?
All right. Well, I would say, number 1, she is awesome. That's just the overall blanket statement. She is awesome. She is a wonderful role model. She is loyal as a friend to the end.
Awesome,
We cry.
loyal role model. Love it.
That's nice.
All right.
That's nice.
What do you got for
I
Kim?
would say that Kim is incredibly kind. I would say that she's incredibly strong and incredibly brave.
See, no, I wouldn't have said those things. I would have said kind, because I like to think of myself as kind.
You are
But
kind.
The brave and the
But
strong.
strong and
I'll take
brave.
that.
See,
Thank
that's
you.
special. So take that in. I love that.
I will.
All right, if there was one last meal you could have, what would it be? Now, Kim, do me a favor. Just say something
know.
not healthy.
I was just gonna
Like, I
say-
see Kim walking and I'm like, oh, don't order the thing with the
I was
heart.
just gonna say, I won't say kale salad.
I'm not gonna lie, I got really happy one day when I watched your daughter order a burger next to you, and I was like, oh, good, okay, that's
know,
allowed.
yeah.
All right. I mean, it's not, but maybe.
No, I
you
know. I've had to loosen the reins a little there.
I mean,
Allow
listen,
them to make
I
their
want
own
to state
choices,
that,
yeah.
that you do everything you teach, I know is right, and I do like a 90%. I'm really pretty good, I think, in the scheme. I try, but you know, you are like a little bit of a physical reminder of like, be healthy.
Thank you. Although,
right, so-
although we will joke about this because people don't like to eat with me, right? They really don't. Like,
Well,
for that reason,
yes,
which is
it's
terrible.
okay.
So,
it's
yeah.
fine.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, go on. What
Anyway,
would your meal
okay,
be?
I was just gonna say I will give it to you that I would definitely have dessert first.
Okay.
My last meal, definitely something chocolate. I don't know exactly, maybe with some peanut butter. I like that combo,
All
peanut
right.
butter and chocolate.
All right, important.
God,
that's good.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I was
Nance?
going to say chocolate. I don't know what more I could do with peanut butter and chocolate. Yeah, I would do lobster tail. And
Lobster
then have
tail.
the peanut butter and the
No
chocolate.
one's given us that answer, so that's look at you, fancy over here.
Fancy Nancy.
I love it, fancy Nancy. Oh my
Those
goodness.
books when the
My-
girls were little.
so much, such cute costumes. That's great. All right, I'll do one more. If there's one place you have not visited that you could go, what would that place be?
Oh, definitely Greece. It is on my bucket list.
I'm going for my 20th
Stop it.
anniversary. It's coming up
Oh
this
my
fall.
gosh. Well, and that's so funny because
I'll give you a full report.
yeah, my husband was asking me that. We were making a bucket list. Everyone in the family got to put something, a place they wanted to see on the bucket list. And I put Greece, and he said maybe for our 20th.
Look at that.
So,
See?
there you
All
go.
right, I'll give you my itinerary.
Yes, please let me know.
Nance?
I would like to go to Hawaii.
Hawaii. That's a great
Yeah,
place.
we've talked about it, but then I'm always like 6'1", 17 hours on a plane. Do the math. It
Okay, it's
doesn't
not
work.
17 hours. It's 11 direct from Newark, just for the record. And you can do a stop. We've done it. It's 11,
Yeah.
and we've done it with a stop where you actually can do like a 24-hour in LA or somewhere fun,
Yes.
and then get back on it. It seems like no big deal. Just
Yeah.
you know.
It's like 6 hours.
Don't let that be your
I'm not a
roadblock.
good sitter.
Yeah.
I am just not a good sitter.
You are tall. You are tall. So, well, it's been lovely having you both here. We encourage people to seek out the Wisdom Coalition on social media. You have a website, the book, Power of a Pivot. There's just some great information and really a way for people to start retraining the way they think and then the way they live. Thank you both for being here.
It's awesome.
Kim, Howie, Nancy Werteen, we are so grateful to have these guests here today. You've been listening to Unscripted with Russo.